And Briggs will be live outside the historic Ironwood Depot, which is celebrating 130 years. Built in 1892, the depot was the hub of an elaborate railroad yard operation in the center of Ironwood. Thousands of immigrants arrived from all over the world, and thousands left from its platform to fight World War I. At least 1 million people passed through its doors since it opened. Automobile traffic and the closure of the mines reduced usage of the depot, and the last passenger train came through in 1971. The depot was scheduled to be demolished in the 80s, but it was saved by the Ironwood Area Historical Society, who takes care of the building to this day.
2 years ago, and the first time in my life, I saw license plates from all 50 states, and I mean even Hawaii. There must have been a serviceman who brought his vehicle over here, which was absolutely astounding.
The depot was listed on the National Register of Historic Places in 1986. To celebrate 130 years, it will host several exhibits to highlight its past and the rich history Ironwood has to offer. And still